My gosh, welcome back, everybody, to the Motivatarian Exchange. I'm your host, Dionne Woods. This week's guest is a dear friend, Porsha Chalmers. How are you, my friend?
I am fabulous. How about you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so great. We have just been enjoying this amazing weather this time of the year. I don't like that it gets dark earlier, but I do love the cooler evenings and mornings. So, everybody, welcome. This is your bi-weekly, sometimes podcast, where we bring on creative women, men who are able to share their strengths and their weaknesses, all centered around motivation. And that is something we all struggle with. So the conversation here is to really kind of help you see that how you feel and how you think is not necessarily that unusual, because we're all motivated differently. But when I sit with a group of women and I say, what's your number one struggle? It always comes down to motivation, because we have the ideas, but the follow through, it's a little bit different. It feels different. It affects other people. And so sometimes, even though we feel motivated, sometimes we drop the ball, or at least we feel like we're dropping the ball. And it's not necessarily what we're doing, but we're caring for so many people, so many things. And with that being said, this podcast is centered around motivation, particularly for creatives. So before we jump into conversation with Miss Porsha, I also want to remind you that our fall volume of the Turquoise Iris Journal is out next week. So mid-October is when our fall volume launches. And we will be shipping printed magazines all over the country and beyond. We are bringing back our international shipping, which we pulled down for a little while. And we are bringing that back, working to get to Australia and the UK and New Zealand and different countries. So thank you all for being subscribers. And if you're not, you can head over to the turquoiseirisjournal.com and get yourself a copy. Porsha is one of my curators for the magazine. So she is on the Iris Journal team. She is helping me develop the content for this. And I am just so grateful to get you on the Motivatarian Exchange. So thanks for joining me, Miss Porsha.
Well, thanks for having me.
I want you to tell everybody where you are and how do you describe what you do, because you do so much.
I am from Lula, Georgia. I was actually born in Gillsville, which is about 5 minutes away. It used to be called Stones Throw, Georgia. And seriously, I just looked that up just to reaffirm that's what it meant. But I do a lot, as you say. I started out, I grew up here. I went in the military. I met my first husband, became a mom in 91. So I have a now 34-year-old a son named Matthew, and who also comes attached with a lovely lady named Brittany, who is his girlfriend. And they currently are here still trying to figure out where they want to move to. But anyways, it's been nice having the millennials here, because they've been very inspiring with my work, because she is an illustrator. Yeah. So she does a lot of illustration work for me. I've been a crafter probably my whole life. I started out very, very young, because it came, as I've mentioned before, from necessity. You get a hole in your pants, you fix them. You didn't just run to the store and buy a new one.
Heck yeah, you put a patch on it and move on.
Just wore them out. I think I was 8 when I hemmed my first pair of pants. I was so excited that my cousin had brought over some new bell bottoms and ran them through the sewing machine with the bright red that mom still had in there, repairing something for somebody else, and worked to school the next day with like a 3-inch hem. And I was so proud of myself, because I did it by myself. But I came from a long line of creatives. My father is also creative. My mom was as well. She made all of our clothing growing up, inspired from growing up in the South with Vacation Bible School in the summer, where I learned different things. So it's been a chapter that I evolved through each part of my life. So I've done a lot. Right now, currently writing and sewing, and those two are telling a story, which I think I've pretty much been a collector of stories my whole life. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on right now.
I know you do a little bit like I do. You collect people and stories. Yeah,
Yes.
and you're putting them together in a book. We're gonna get into more of that here in a minute, but I wanna ask you something I have not asked you before.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Ask away.
okay. We just
Okay.
talked about mom and dad.
Yes.
So, where did they get the name Portia?
My dad said he did not know where my mom got it. And if I recall right, my mother had an uncle that she was super close to who dated a woman named Portia. And she
Okay.
always said if she had children, that if she had a daughter, that's what she named. Well, my name is actually spelled incorrectly because she spelled it phonetically.
Yeah.
And it's actually supposed to be spelled Portia, but I got the Porsha. So that's what I. So for my recollection from what my mom told me, I can't ask her now because she's no longer with us, but that was the story that I stored. That's what she told me. It was from a young lady that my uncle dated when she was young, that she really
Okay.
liked the name. So I'm glad it
Okay.
wasn't the other one because it was either going to be that or Rakonda. So I'm so grateful it was Portia, not Rakonda.
Sorry, I'm glad too. I'm gonna tell the truth.
I
Oh,
would have
thank you
changed
for
my name as soon as I was old enough to go do that. So,
Oh,
oh my
some of the
gosh.
names, I get asked all the time where Dionne came from, and Dionne is from Dionne Warwick.
Uh,
My parents really loved her music. They've spelled it the exact same way
mhm.
as Dionne Warwick. And then, but my first name's actually Bethany. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Mhm.
You're only like the second Dionne I know outside of music, because I actually went to school with a young lady named Dionne, and she
Really?
was like one of my childhood friends, but she only spelled it with one N. So,
Okay.
yeah, so
That's so great that you had a Dionne friend.
I did.
That's so rare. I did not know one till I was an adult.
Mm.
And yeah, anyway, it's like the random, it's like it only happened like 5 times in my life so far when I've met
Mm.
another Dionne. And so I remember like each time and what they looked like and like, wait a minute, what? And then when it's spelled,
Same
yeah,
with
like
my
when it's
name.
spelled the same, you're like,
What? When we have
oh.
somebody in our group that's got the same name. She spells
Mhm.
it different, but she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And then we were like, somebody else that has the same name. I mean, it's because it's so uncommon. And I mean, I remember I'll tell the short story from Walmart. When my first husband was still living, he was able to drive his wheelchair on his own. And we were at the Walmart and he came and got me because he couldn't talk, but he came to get me and wanted me to follow him. So I follow him. And here's this pretty young lady at the door greeting people. Come to find out her mother had worked with my mom when I was a kid
Oh.
and she liked that name. And so when
Oh
she
my
had
god.
children, so there was another person in Banks County named Portia. so, so weird.
Oh, that's so good too.
Mm.
You mentioned being a veteran. So
Yes.
I want to know at what time in your life, Miss Portia, did you just decide I'm going to do this? Like, was this something that Miss Portia wanted to do when she was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14? Or
No.
did you just wake up one day and say, I'm doing this? Was it an act of defiance? What made you want to do this, Portia?
So what happened was, oh gosh, I might as well go ahead and tell it. So my roommate and I, we had been friends since we were 12 years old. And we decided after I was dating someone who actually was a reservist and got to talking about college.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, we could use some more money for school. So I was originally going to go as a reservist. Well, I ended up dating a young man who was also a reservist at the time. And it got more serious than I was comfortable with. And so I went and talked to the gunny and
Okay.
asked him to put me in the first active duty spot that was available. And that December, like 2 weeks after I asked him, I was gone. I went to put my feet on the yellow footprints on December 9th of 1986. And was in for a rude awakening when I got there because I had no idea what to expect other than my uncle who was a retired Navy, who had told me, he says, just remember, because if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. So if it matters, you're going to mind. So that was one of the things that stuck with me because
Okay.
they want you to be on the same page. And here you are coming from this, being a country deacon's daughter, farmer's daughter,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's a totally different life. And the funny part about all of that was going in, I originally was thinking about travel too. And I spent my whole my whole enlistment at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, so I didn't get to go anywhere.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah. I had orders 3 times to go to 3 great places, and because of things that were going on in the world, the orders were canceled, and so I spent my whole enlistment at Camp Lejeune. I was just like,
Okay. So when you made this decision, 2 weeks later, you were gone. What did you tell mom and dad?
well, I wasn't living at home yet. I had already sworn in to go that summer, so because I was on a delayed entry program, because back then they did that. And I was going to go into motor transport field because well, that's what I knew. I grew up on the farm, so driving and working on vehicles was not a big deal for me. So I decided I would take that field because it would be something that wouldn't be that hard to shift into.
Yeah.
So my dad actually, I don't think he liked the idea too much. My mom, she kind of understood that I needed to find myself, and it wasn't here at that time.
Yeah.
And so when I decided to go ahead and go, she had actually not been home from the hospital long, because I'd actually considered talking to the gunny about not going because my mom had been ill. But she had come home and she was doing really well. So I decided to go ahead and go because I knew I was only going to be just literally a day's drive away from home, so I could come home if I needed to.
Okay.
But my dad, I didn't think they would come see me graduate, but when I got a letter from my mom a week before graduation that they were going to come. And then when I came home, anytime we went anywhere, church or a family function, he wanted me to put my uniform on. So I knew, even though he wouldn't come out and say it, he was kind of proud of the fact that his daughter stuck it out.
Yes.
There was no way I was not coming home without graduating. So a quitter I am not. It may take me a little longer to do some things, but that is not instilled in me. We start something, we finish it. Sometimes it just takes a little longer to get from point A to point B. But yeah, so that's kind of how that happened.
Thank you for letting me ask and for answering, because I'm thinking of questions I don't know about you or that I haven't asked you before. You being a part of the magazine, I know a lot about you, especially because we spend a lot of time on coaching calls and in the leadership lab and everything. So next, you come home and it's time for you to get a job. And what are you wanting to do? You learned so much about yourself. You must have just felt this, I don't know. I don't want to say, did you feel more aware of what you loved and were passionate about, or did you feel less sure?
Well, after you're talking about from the military?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I came home from the military, so I was in for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had found my then husband, Brian, and I had become a mom. And that's when the last time our orders had come in, I had always wanted to go to Iwakuni, Japan. And the only way I could go was to go as a family. Well, my first husband had already been there, done that. And he's like, well, I'll be here when you get back. And I'm looking at him, it's like, I am not leaving a 9-month-old baby behind.
Yeah.
I had, so I had to make a choice between being married and a mom, because I had seen so many times what happens lots of times when a mom or a dad leaves, come home and things are not the same, or or stay in and be a Marine and take my chances. And I just felt the calling that it was just time for me to finish my enlistment. So I was supposed to re-enlist by that November if I was going to stay in. And if not, then December 10th would have been my last day. So that's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
But I did end up coming back home, and right away I was able to get a job. I worked for UPS right out the get-go because I filled quotas, because at that time they were looking for veterans, and because I was a woman, it was 2 slots. Yeah. And the fact that I could actually drive a stick shift was even a plus.
Bonus, big time.
Yes, because none of the other ones could that were there. I think there was like 7 of us. I was the only one who could drive a stick shift. And I was the only girl, and the rest are guys, and none of them could drive a stick shift. And I drove big trucks when I was in. So,
wow. Thinking of you then is so different than where you are, where I see you now, because one, you're in my female curator team.
Very female.
You work with women. Not that you don't work with men, but it's basically a female centered, community that you're in. And so I would think that there's a lot of empowerment that would come from being in with men, in men. I don't know what you even say, how you say it, but like empowerment, knowing that like I can hold my own.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing was back then, and even before me, because I think I was like the second group to go through for the newer branch, which is no longer, because now they're integrated with men. I was the second group to go through the year, because it was in '86 when they started because it used to be the women's training regiment, something that I can't remember what it's called, but then they had separated to 4th Battalion, and which was a recently shut down. They were and they merged the men and women, so the women are training both in South Carolina and in San Diego together. I mean, they're not bunking together, but they're training together, which the only time we trained with the men is when we went to the rifle range. But yes, I would say that was probably something that probably got me more in tune with being a female more so, because I grew up a tomboy. I was playing basketball,
Sure.
I was right behind my dad, I was in the garden, I was doing all those things that, typically, mostly gentlemen would do.
Sure.
But growing up on the farm with 3 girls and a boy, the girls are going to do what the guys are doing. We're in the field, we're in the shop if dad needed help with something, and vice versa in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But the rules were different for my brother because that was woman's work. But yet when it came garden time, us girls were out doing the guys' work. But but when I was in, it was just I don't even know how to describe it. I felt like we had to try 3 times as hard to stick out, because so many of the women came in and they were not honorable. I'll just say it like that and to keep it clean, to get somewhere. And I would have to try so hard to just, put my foot down. It's like, no, I'm not that person. I'm going to get there because I'm good at what I do, because I know what I'm talking about. And so that worked for me because I was an E5 when I got out.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'd have stayed in, I was actually up for E6 when I stepped out.
Okay.
But that's pretty fast for a female who's not doing what other females were doing. I'll just leave it at that. I wasn't.
We'll just let that one go.
Yes, thank you.
Porsha, let me just also say thank you for your service and the service that you absolutely. So we fast forward, Brian, Matthew, now your mom, and the 2 of you are building a life together. And was there time during that and before your first husband's illness, was there time for you to be creative during that time?
So yeah, so we came home after boot camp. I mean, after I finished my time of service, and I worked for UPS for a little while, and he couldn't find work but like 6 or 8 weeks at a time, and then he would get laid off because I don't know what was the economy was going through at the time. I don't remember, but it was just harder for him to find work. And so he went to visit his folks, found a job, and so I ended up leaving UPS and becoming a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
So I was home with Matthew until he was 9. So in order to have my own money, we started doing those side hustles right off the get-go. Teaching people how to sew, coming back to my roots of being around my mom. I mean, I sent her a sewing machine at a young age.
Yeah.
All those things were coming in so that I can, provide a little extra income, because it was tight trying to be able to be home with my son, because my thought was I'm not going back to work full time until he can come home and tell me about his whole day.
Got it.
And have a conversation about it. And that would have been in 3rd grade for him. And so the way we worked it out, my husband worked afternoons, I worked day shifts, so that way he was never with daycare. He always had one of us home with him. So that's what we did.
What a lucky kid to have both of you as parents.
Yeah, and so I just started tinkering around with all the things. I mean, from everything from jewelry to clothing. I taught a class on wall quilts, where you do memory quilts and things like that in our community. So I had a neighbor that we would sit and make bears. She worked for the Sealy factory, so she would bring home all the fabric that they were going to toss. And we would make dresses, clothes for the little bunnies, because that's, that hung on your doors for the holidays, so we were able to do those kind of things.
Oh my gosh. Well, So let's fast forward a little bit because I know that the season you went through with Brian was one of the hardest times, if not the hardest time of your entire life, being a caregiver,
Yes. Yeah.
and you survived that.
I can do hard things, obviously.
You can
I can
do.
I can laugh about it now, but it was not, and not laugh as a joy, but as a nervous laugh, I guess you could say, because that to my sadness about it, is 15 years later. And no, actually, it's longer than that now. Good Lord. So he was diagnosed on May 23rd, 2007.
Okay.
So that's when he was diagnosed. And 3 years prior to that, little things were popping up that we associated with, like, joint issues or this, that, or the other. And then he had to start to have where he would sneeze, he would just literally hit the ground and they would start laughing uncontrollably. And then that's when I started putting two together that something neurological was going on.
Mm.
So we went, and I think we got first opinion, second opinion. The second opinion guy, as she goes, well, he told us what he thought it was, which when you, back then, I think WebMD was kind of like the big thing where you put all your little symptoms in, try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was actually on the list, but it was at the very bottom of the list. It was not, it was in, like, I think they gave you like 15 or maybe 10 things that it could be for, trying to figure out what it is. And MS was what we kind of had wrote it off, that's what it was. And when he told us it was ALS, I knew what it was because I knew who, Lou Gehrig, because
Uh-huh.
of him being, the baseball story. And I think we were both kind of like in shock. And,
Sure.
that day was probably one of the hardest days, because that's when I knew that both of our lives were not going to be what we planned, because he had just left early retirement from Ford. We were getting ready. I was actually in school for health information technology. We were actually going to open a wellness clinic with a future, a doctor
Oh.
friend. And,
Mm.
that was kind of like where we were going. And that never happened.
No.
But in doing the school, I did get the knowledge I needed. So I always look at stepping stones, going backwards,
Sure.
not living in the past, but understanding that good Lord gave me the spots to be in when I needed to be, to learn what I needed to learn, to give me the tools to
Mhm.
be able to cope with what was being dealt to me.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. I got enough medical terminology and psychology to be able to cope the best I could as a mom for my son. And
Absolutely.
and then being able to be present for him as his partner. And then as that shift in from being a partner, more caregiver, because things change. They just change. There's nothing you can do about it. When they can't move anything, it's just you're their companion. And then I was at an event last night where a woman had just, she was surviving a stroke,
Mm.
and her mom was speaking for her. And it took me back. And that's been,
I'm sure.
almost 14 years. And it took me back to that time when he was not able to speak, and we had been so connected that I knew what he was thinking, and I could have the conversation for him.
Mhm.
And, so that you never really escape those things, because something will trigger that memory of that time in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am just, as you know, as I listen to your story, and I know bigger pieces of it and stuff because I've had the honor of hearing more about it as well. But I cannot stop thinking about how the way that you learned how to create with your hands as a little girl from very, very beginning
Mhm.
saved you, Portia. Didn't
Yes, it did. Yes. Yeah, it did. By nature, I am a busy person. And as from growing up, if you were not busy, Pop would find something for you to do. And I call my dad Pop. So
it?
I didn't want what Dad had for us to do. So, I mean, I literally would go dig the weeds out of the bricks to keep from having to go do something that Dad wanted to do, just so I was busy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in doing that, I always would, if the time was idle, it gave the mind time to go places that I couldn't do anything about. So I would find something to do. And so I started making quilts of valor.
Mhm.
Well, and that started from making a quilt for Brian to cover his legs, because at that time, just before he got his diagnosis, we were going to the races because that's something that he enjoyed. I really didn't care for it that much, but it was something that we could do as a family. And so, take one for the team,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
put that backpack on and go do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself became a big coping mechanism later, because we made friends prior to him getting sick. And then they became a part of a story that later evolved by putting me in a place that I wasn't comfortable with being in the spotlight, because I became really good friends with one of the drivers. And he and Brian became very close because he lived in California. So at night I would hear Brian kind of giggling because he would talk with a computer. It had a dot that was on his forehead. And that's how he got where he could use the computer to speak for him. And so he could get on Facebook Messenger, and the two of them would be talking back and forth, and I would hear him giggling. And I knew who he was talking to because of that. Well, we became, like I said, we would go to races, and one race in particular, we had met him here at the local track that's no longer open. And that they have rituals just like a lot of people do when they're in a chance to win something. They're everything from putting wigs on to people sit in the same place, or they wear the same socks the whole weekend, just weird stuff, just because I'm going to win this game, so they're not going to change it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they're normally on race day, no one's allowed in their tow vehicle because they haven't been there the whole weekend. So this particular weekend, Jack had came to meet us on Sunday morning, and he told him, he says, I want you to ride the tow vehicle. And if you want to, is what he asked Brian. Brian's like, biggest cheesy grin ever, because he's like, oh, yes, I'm not going to turn that down, because he would get to go all the way from the front to the end of the racetrack. Oh, yeah. So he goes, the only thing is, if I put you there, he goes, you can't get out. You have to stay there till I lose. Well, he didn't lose. He won that race. So we'll fast forward to a few months later. We ended up going to Bristol, Tennessee, and it was a big event. And we had a rain delay, and I didn't know this, but he'd already talked to all the friends we had made at all these races over the few years and had them meet us there for that morning, because they have like a church at the racetrack. They have chaplain comes, does a message, and then they'll do a TV little show. And then sometimes they'll have somebody from the crowd come and speak. Well, I had spoke many times about ALS and mine and Brian's journey. Mm-hmm. And he put me on the spot, and I was kind of mad at him for a little while for that, but I understood later why he did it. But he was trying to make it about me. And I said, no, this is not about me. I said, this is about you. He goes, no, Porsha, it really is about you. And this is on national TV. I'm like, really? You're going to do this right now? And he's looking at me like, yes, I'm going to do this right now. He goes, you have stepped up and done something that most people don't, because you took the hard road instead of the easy road. Yeah. He said, in doing so, he goes, this man gets to have the best quality of life because you stepped up and took it for the team to make sure that happened. And that goes way back from being the oldest of four. It goes back to being in the military, where you're taught no one gets left behind. You just don't. So he ended up taking the jacket from that race that we met him at, that he won, and had Semper Fi with mine and Brian's name on it, and gave it to us on national TV. I didn't know it was on national TV. So the next thing I know, my phone starts blowing up. Did I just see you on TV? I had like 20 people message me because they had seen me on TV. I'm like, you're kidding me.
Well, thank goodness you didn't know beforehand.
Oh, no, because I would have probably choked him for just a brief second thought about it anyways. But, to this day, we don't talk as much as we did. I don't go to the races as much now. But like, I'll remember his birthday, or he'll remember mine, and we'll text each other. And, it goes back to, that time when, he said that was some of the best years of my race. I said, no, you have no idea what that meant. Because no, he says, you don't know what that meant to me to be part of witnessing that. So that's definitely. That. Yeah.
At what point, my friend, did you cross paths with Mr. Jim?
So Jim came into my life. Okay, I get to tell the funny story about Jim. So Jim, when I was in massage school, so I already kind of started figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I had met some wonderful people during Brian's hospice years. that kind of, that's like I said, that chess piece God put in my life. Like, okay, you're going to meet this person because they're going to influence you. And I truly feel that way, that nothing's accidental. There's synchronicity and all the things.
Yeah.
And so ended up going to massage school, and I was almost done with school. And I decided, well, I think I'm going to kind of put myself out there and date, because with the grief process I went through, it was different than ever, and grief is different for everybody. So I'll just go ahead and say that. And I had already gone through all the stages. It's like when he was diagnosed, it's like, okay, I'm not going to get to live the rest of my life with this man.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time he passed, it'd been almost 7 years from day one. And it was like, I have to figure something out here. Do I want to date or not? And so I decided that I was going to go on a website called Christian Mingle first.
Okay.
Oh gosh, no.
No, that was bad, Porsha.
Not good. So it was definitely an allusion to an untruth. We'll just put it that way.
Oh man.
Yeah. So by the time I decided that wasn't going to work, I decided to go on that I definitely wanted someone in my life. And so I went on eHarmony. And by the time I had met Jai, it had been like 15 different people I had gone out with over a little bit of time. And Jim and I were messaging back and forth, and I actually was number 15 for him as well over a longer period of time. And so we were messaging back and forth, and then all of a sudden there was nothing. It was crickets. I'm like,
What'd you do, Porsha? What'd you say?
I didn't say anything. I was like, what's going on here? Because you have 5 questions, and then there were 5 questions, then 5 questions, and 5 questions.
Okay.
So that goes on. So anyways, I decided to email eHarmony, just ask if he had discontinued the conversation. So, well, you did. I'm like, oh, no, please tell Mr. Carson I would love to talk to him. So the message come through. I was coming back from a race, and I literally pulled over on the side of I-85 because I knew it was him. And then we started to message. There was just something I knew that I just felt.
How do you know? Like, what was it? A particular answer he gave you?
I think because he was so subtle about the thing he was looking for. It's like, look, I don't make a whole lot of money. He goes, but I live very simply. And he goes, and I look for little adventures in the daily life. And I'm like, okay, that's my kind of guy.
Yeah. It's the way you articulated that concept, right?
Like it was in broad daylight. There was no having to shovel through a bunch of crapola to figure out what was, the package was like right there. It was just like, okay, he's handsome, he's smart. And so we decided we were going to we started texting each other, and finally we made a decision to talk to each other on the phone. And it was supposed to be like the deadline week from Hades, as he called it, and where he wasn't able to talk on the phone that much. And he told me, you might have 10 minutes. Well, that 10 minutes turned into an hour and 45 minutes on the phone.
Did you get him in trouble with his boss?
No, I didn't. We just kept talking.
Yeah.
And it just kept, and then I just knew before the first date, I actually allowed him to come pick me up here, which I normally wouldn't do that. There was just something wholesome about him.
And how far away did he live from you?
He lived in Murphy, North Carolina. Okay. His parents lived in Anderson. So he was constantly coming there. So it was like a place that he could, it was a halfway point. And I was like right on the cusp of being too far away for him to date. Okay. And then, the rest is history.
Yeah. Because everywhere you go, Jim is.
He's right there.
He is your partner in all that you do. Yes. He is an amazing supporter for you, and a cheerleader and a rock. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. And it is very clear that this gift of this man was definitely a gift.
Yes. And funny you say that as a gift, because, when I was inquiring about what, I talked to a spirit, I talked to God, and I was walking around the perimeter of my lawn, and I was like, I need a sign that this is, that I'm allowed. I was like, I was looking for permission to move on. Sure. And mine and Brian's thing was dragonflies, and we would never see them in pairs.
Yeah.
And as soon as I had kind of like uttered those words, because I'm by myself, so I could talk out loud, nobody would hear me except for the birds,
Yeah.
and I just happened to look up, and here were two dragonflies mating in the shape of a heart.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay,
Wow,
we're
that's
doing this.
yeah, we're gonna do this little love
Yes.
story right here
Yeah.
and see what happens. So, let's fast forward because now,
Yeah.
you are well, 1, you're on fire,
Yes.
but your motivation doesn't seem to run out at this point. So, as a motivatarian, I'm attracted to people that seem to have bumps and keep going, and I wanna dissect it. I
Mm,
wanna dissect how do you keep going through the bumps and the tribulations? What do you lean on? What's your process? What does it look like for you to continue to be motivated? Because in just a few weeks, you are hosting your first workshop or your retreat,
mhm,
and all of these things that you have spent a lifetime building and
mhm,
creating and focusing on are all going to be delivered, right, in this all-encompassing container to your guests, to the people who read your book, to the
mhm.
people who, get to experience Porsha.
Yes. So I'm trying, where would I start here? Because when you mentioned bumps, I think because I'm a very excitable rabbit chaser or squirrel chaser, I guess is the word, because I was finding a lot of things that excite me and pique
Yeah.
my curiosity.
Isn't that amazing, though? Think about this. Think about what you just said. Let's just,
Yeah.
like we're just gonna say that, pause for a second, and go, "Thank you, God," because
Yeah,
that right there,
absolutely. I was
it
fixing to
is
say,
so great that you get excited about so many
mhm,
things and that you
yes,
feel that rhythm of like, "Oh my goodness, this is something," right? So I just
yes.
have to, like, say
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I was going with that because every time that there's a pivot in my life, the zig and zag that we do in our life, I think about just this earlier this year when my father had cardiac arrest right in front of us in a church service, and I have not totally processed that yet because I went into that instant. I'm the oldest. We got things to do. Got to take care of things, and then I feel like God just like set my fanny right down. It's like you're going to sit down and you're going to think because you made a
Mm,
promise about something, and I was reminded that
mm,
we don't have as much time as we think we do.
mm,
And my dad had asked me to write a story about me and Brian and
mhm,
Jim, and because, that's just evolved into this beautiful thing. And the other was a beautiful thing as well. And so I had the opportunity to collaborate with 30 other people to tell our stories of how we, got into the healing field. And that was part of my story because those two people are pivotal pieces in shaping that puzzle and completing that puzzle for me. One was started it, and the other one was like the final piece that dropped in. And so when that happened with my dad, I'm sitting there because you have time on your hands. I was like, I got this little thought just came in, and it's like a little reminder. It's like, hey, on my shoulders, thinking, remember what you told your dad? And I'm looking at Jim. I said, I know what I'm supposed to do. And he looked at me, goes, what's that? I said, I remember that story I told you. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm gonna go get your book. He went and got my notebook, and I just started writing down, you know, thoughts, going back, reliving some of the things. And how could I, if I told this, how could it help somebody else? Because that's where I always go. It's like, how can this help somebody? How can this make someone else's life easier?
absolutely.
Because in turn, you and I both know that when you share your story with someone else, you let them know that sometimes it might be me too, because they've been where you're at.
Yeah.
Number two is like, oh my gosh, she can do hard things, so can I. Or the third being is like, okay, I'm not alone. Yeah, so that's where I sat for those months because I have a practice here. I, have a business that if I don't work, it doesn't run. And I have clients that understood that my family comes first. And they were there for me when I was able to come back to work. So I was off work for almost 4 months.
Yeah.
And so in 4 months, I was able to write a chapter and go back to something I had started in the fall because he had cancer that year. And it's like, okay, so this is why this had happened. So this would happen first, because this had to happen in order for me able to go forward with the other, of being able to connect with each person who decided they want to come talk to me and bring their pieces. And so we could put them all together and make something beautiful out of it.
Yes. And so going back to the word gifts,
Yeah.
your relationships are
Yeah.
gifts to you.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Yes.
you, in turn, your storytelling and you being able to be vulnerable and express exactly what you went through and how how it felt, is your gift back to others.
I look at it that way too, because and it's not ego either. It's
No?
definitely coming from a place of
Mhm.
love and understanding.
Yeah.
Because what is it, the old Indian, or it could be any story as far as that goes. Because for me, it was that's been told to me is that you can't judge a person by the way they walk in their moccasins, the path that they've gone on, unless you walked in those moccasins or flip flops or whatever. You could change the story to anything. So I try to be non-judgmental. I try to be open. I think even in high school, I was very social, but I didn't have like best friends. I had a circle of people that we kind of just like meandered through all through high school, and some of them I still talk to now. I think because my siblings are my best friends.
That's special.
And I'm very close to all my siblings,
That's
but
special.
for I think I was just the one who would hold space for people. I don't know where the gift came from, but it was just something that I was blessed with, to be able to sit and hold space for somebody else. Because I mean, I'm kind of like, I guess the word empathic, where I'm empathetic for others, where I could feel things when I get around certain people or a group of people, feel that energy that's going on in that space. And then I can tell if I need to step closer, and just say, hey, are you okay? Or just step and just pat them on the back, and if they are welcoming to that, then sometimes they start talking and I just listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's become a gift in itself as well, because that's kind of what's happened with the evolution of the book Tattered and Mended, that I'm doing. And because I know each of the people, we have a connective story. Each one of us do, even though there's an age gap between 75 and 39 in the stories that are
I
being
love it.
told.
I love
Yeah,
that.
originally it was going to be, I had a lady in their 90s, but she decided she didn't want to. And then I had someone as young as the 20s, but some of those pieces are still coming in there, but not in their own story. But
Okay. There
yeah,
can
for
be
this, yeah.
a volume 2 later down the road, sis.
Well, we'll see, because
I
I'm trying to
mean,
self-publish, and
yeah,
it is a lot of work. And of course,
sure
I'm
it is.
blessed with Jim's other gifts of being an editor, so he can go back. It's like, yeah, and sometimes that might cause a little discontent, but because I like my dot dots, and he's a
So
dash guy.
he's a dash guy and you're a dot, dot, dot.
Yeah,
I'm with
so
you on the dot, dot, dots.
yeah.
Portia, I would love for you to just expand a little bit more on the book, and for anybody that's listening to, like, if you've piqued their curiosity, which no doubt you have, when can they be looking for that, and where can they look for that?
Okay, so the intention that I set for it is 11/11. I chose 11/11 for various reasons. One being I'm a veteran, and it's Veterans Day. And it's kind of like a little magical number. It's like with people that I love, when I see that number, I'll either text, or if they're with me, tell them I love them. It's just this very special number.
Mhm.
And so I decided to go with that number, because that's actually when I started the project last year. That was when the first piece was brought to me that changed the whole spectrum of the story. Uh, Originally, it was going to be grief stories. And it kind of is in a way still, but in a more place of love grief, I guess, where I'll give you a short introduction on one. She's an older lady. She was all excited when she found out I was doing this work, and she came to my home with this box of fabrics. She's 76 now.
Okay.
And she goes, my story is not a grief story. She goes, my story is of becoming.
Hmm.
And she says, and I want to tell a story of becoming for my grandchildren. She
Mhm.
goes, I want this to perpetuate where I am in my life right now. She had recently become a widow. And she's kind of like the big sister I never had. You know, we're instant friends. I've known her for, oh gosh, almost 7 years now. And we just, you know, she's an retired English teacher. So I was flattered that she would ask me to write her story for her. And then I actually was able to go ahead and present hers. So everybody's having to be quiet until November to put it out and show anybody. I mean, they could show their friends, but I asked them not to put it on social media until the book came out.
Sure.
But so that story, I was able to weave in the story of her parents and how, you know, she kind of grew up similar to me with being the oldest and living from scarcity, not having a lot for different reasons, but still being appreciative of not tossing and more of repurposing. And when she had stumbled across that box of fabrics that her mother had made clothing for other people and kept in plans to make something for her children, you know, so that in itself was, you know, totally changed. I think I'd wrote like 3 or 4 stories by then. I'm like, oh no, this is not where we're going. I've gotten this little gift again.
Yeah.
Of telling me, it's like, no, this is not what you're supposed to be doing here.
Right.
So, and then once I made that change, I mean, the words just kept coming.
Yeah. That's so
You know,
beautifully.
and then being able to create, I mean, I was struggled with hers the most to make because what I envisioned, I had a shortage of fabric and I wasn't able to do. But then when I ended up doing what I ended up doing for her, I'm trying not to divulge too much because it's important that I don't do that yet. It just turned out to be this very beautiful, unique piece that told the story that she wanted to tell.
Yeah. And I cannot wait. And guess what? It's almost October tomorrow. Actually,
I know.
I said that
Yes.
silly. It
I
is
know. I have to.
October tomorrow. It's not almost October tomorrow.
Yes.
It is almost. I mean,
So yeah, like 6 weeks.
yeah,
I
6 weeks
will
is
have a
what
book out.
we're working here. And
Yeah.
so the motivation to keep going through that is basically what I'm seeing and hearing from you is the opportunity. You know, when I'm listening to you, I'm reminded of Big Magic. Have you read that book?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm reminded of when I'm listening to you, just so you know, that is a compliment.
Thank you.
But I'm thinking about how other people's stories, which can be this connected growth, this connection that you have with each one of these people has been your opportunity for growth and where you are finding that motivation. So as you're pulling it all in and it's pulling it forward, it needs a voice. And because whether you see yourself as fearless or not, that's how I see you, is just absolutely fearless, that you're able to just collectively pull all this together and say, I don't know if anybody's going to read this, but these stories are dang worth reading. Let me just tell
Yes.
you. And I'm
Yes.
going to spend nights and days by myself, with my husband, with other people helping me to put all of this together for others, for the reader at home. So I hope that all of you definitely check out the book and that we read this and that you order it and that you tell your friends and that you order a copy for your family and for your grandmother and for your graduate, like anybody and everybody. And then also one of the most exciting things you have coming up is this retreat. You're putting yourself out there because you and Jim are sound healers now. And
Yes. Yes.
expanding,
Excited.
expanding, and expanding. And this expansion is inhabiting so many opportunities for you that I feel like I said the other day that I was in my peacock era. I think you are too.
Yes. Yes. It's funny you mentioned feathers. I get little feathers everywhere. It's like, oh, yep, yeah. It's like breadcrumbs for the trail. I never imagined. Well, that's not true because that in the last couple years is like, you know, because I've been doing them here in the studio in this room we're here now. I can have up to 10 students.
Okay.
Most of the time it's about 6 to 8 that'll show up. We have like it started out as Soulful Saturdays about 5 years ago, and it was something we did monthly. And we did everything from I was practicing doing guided meditation, and all my things have to be rooted in spirit because without that, I'm just putting words out there, and it's not meaningful without being connected to my source. I'll just say that out front. But with that, it just ended up becoming a kind of a God thing. I had met you 2 years ago this October,
Yes, look at that.
and yeah. So I knew who you were, and we both have regaled that story many times, but that was not a accident that I was to meet you. I felt a draw to come to that event, and because I wanted to learn
Mhm.
how to get outside of my geography.
Mhm.
I didn't know why I was pulled that way, but of course now I do. But I just knew that in order to think outside of my geography, I had to get outside of my geography. And so coming to that one, I was like, oh gosh, this is missing in my life. I want to be there.
Yeah.
And then every time there was one where I could get there, I was there. And I just felt like every time I went, and I said this at our last retreat, I felt like every time I made the time to show up there, that I leveled up in my own personal life, in my relationships, in my work.
And in
And
less than 2 years, you spoke.
yes, I spoke at this last one, and it was just one of those things where I just shared a backpack. It was a simple backpack, but that simple backpack has carried so much in my life,
Mhm.
and the stories it could tell if it could talk.
Mhm.
And so I felt that metaphor was appropriate because we all carry things that we feel that we can't set down. And then as soon as you set something down, something more amazing and beautiful has room to bloom.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so with me, that bag carried, overnight clothing for hospitals. It carried food and medication when a different time in Barnes' life. And then when I became a widow, it became my backpack because I took lots of walks in the woods by myself. I
Mhm.
have, food, water, just in case I was decided I was going to camp for the night, because I have done that. I don't know if I would do that now, but I did then. And just being in nature, trying to ground myself. And so when I look at that bag, that's what I think about is all the phases of my life that bag's been part of it. And
Yeah.
when you told me I was going, had that opportunity, I was like, I'm going to talk about the backpack. I have to, because that, like, it's such a beautiful metaphor,
It
because
is. Yeah.
and even though I didn't say everything I wanted to say, I felt that I said something that resonated, because I had so many people come talk to me afterwards, which wasn't the purpose of it. It was for, an introduction to people who didn't know who I was. I knew that purpose, but it was an opportunity for me to be more confident in sharing the ugly,
Right.
and that it was okay to do that, not to live in it, but to share it, because in doing that, I had several people come up to me and says, "Thank you for doing that,"
Yeah.
because I felt that, and even with the chapter in the book, I didn't have to do that. But I felt drawn to do it, and when I did that, the messages that I received, the voice smells I received, like I say, it was never about doing things for ego. It was about something that I just felt the burning desire that I needed to do it,
Yeah.
to put it out
And
there.
you're motivated clearly not just by compassion for others and a
Mhm.
compassionate community, but also just connection.
Yes,
Um, that every time you make a new connection, there's another layer of growth there. Isn't it?
absolutely.
Isn't it amazing?
It is. It is. It
It's
is.
amazing.
I just so unbelievable. I mean, because I've heard the 2 year thing. I hear people say, "Well, I look back in the last 2 years, just from walking in the door at Spartanburg and Danielle's shop,
Yeah.
and meeting her and Renee and everybody else, that was at that table that night. Half of them are still in my life in some form or fashion. Um,
That's right.
I can imagine them not being there.
That's right.
But had I not gone, they would be in my life.
Had you not gone, we don't know. I mean, we
No,
don't even have to think about it or wonder about it. We just know what
no.
is, and that is
Yes.
that we are. And for people that are wanting to check out a retreat from you, or come see you, or visit you at a festival and buy products from you, where can they find out all of this information, Portia?
You can go to my website at the silverbohemian.com. everything is there. I have the events tab. It'll take you to the event. You can sign up for my email list. That way you know everywhere I'm going to be because I put everything in my email. You can also find me on Facebook under the Silver Bohemian as well, and Instagram and the Silver Bohemian as well there. And I've gotten a little more involved in posting. We actually have a live schedule this evening. It's 7 p.m. Eastern time. So if you
Hi,
want to come and say hi,
I will try.
uh, yeah, we're trying to do that on Tuesdays weekly now. So because this, as you mentioned, Jim earlier, Jim's kind of like been like my backup guy, like he's my pip. So now he's like stepped up because, like you had mentioned, he became certified as a master sound healer along with me in Colorado this summer. So we are doing the retreat together. I mean, I'm the face for it, but he actually is very, very involved in the production of what's to come. Because I mean, I would have to hire people to do the things
Mm-hmm.
that he does.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say behind every good man is a good woman, I'm one of those women who could say behind this good woman, I have a great man behind me. So I wouldn't be able to do it without his support.
You sure do. And I relate to that, wouldn't not being able to do it without support. So,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we are people who are both grounded from our home base,
Yes.
that our home base has to feel supported and secure. And that's what I receive at home. That's why I'm happiest here at home.
Yes. Same.
Right. And so, listen, lady, we could talk all day.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've got some things that you need to do, and I just want to thank you for being so vulnerable as always.
Thank you, my
Um,
friend.
there is someone right now listening to this that needed to hear your exact words, Porsha. There is somebody right here, right now, being a caregiver
Mm-hmm.
who feels like this is their life for the rest of their life. There is
Yes.
somebody right now missing love,
Mhm.
wondering if it'll ever come back to them, or
Yes.
maybe they've never found it. And there is somebody right now listening who's got a lot of dreams and plans and has absolutely no idea how to find the motivation to get there. And so, listening to your stories and your gifts that you've just shared with my audience, Portia and I want to both say to all of you, if you need something, reach out, but find your motivation in the connection that you have with other people. Be real, be authentic, and share what's on your heart, and it will come back to you.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you so very much, everybody, for listening to the Motivatarian Exchange, and for my beautiful friend, Portia. Thank you, darling.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We will see you guys in the next episode.